one of the real factors, which is quite interesting and doesn't get talked about very much, is the role of faith and religion. Now, traditionally, people who have a stronger religious identity, or they have some form of religious identification, they may identify as Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Sikh, Buddhist. Um, they're notably more likely to say they're happy in life, that they're a happy person, that they're satisfied with life, and they're more optimistic about their future when compared to those who say that their religious background is not very important to their personal identity. They may have no stated religious affiliation, or they may flat out reject the existence of gods, or higher spiritual powers. And I think that just doesn't get talked about enough because we've undergone this process of rapid secularization. When it comes to talking about mental health, faith at the moment doesn't really get a looking. But I would like to think that over time that will change, and I'd like to play a personal part in that.
So, and I agree with you, faith, it can give someone a sense of
Mm,
stillness and belonging.
sure.
But do you think, even within like racial groups, do you think that picture will change? Because we seem to be more secular along in terms of the younger generation, regardless of what race you are part of. Whereas the older
Mm.
generation, I think there might be different levels, but they may be overall more religious. So, do you think there might be a change because we're just becoming more secular as years go on?
I think the changes will be different from group to group. And what I mean by that is that certain groups, their level of integration in the white British secular mainstream um, may be stronger compared to other groups. For example, if you look at the wider British Black population, Black Caribbeans who are they're more established in terms of duration. We could talk about the Windrush generation. They've been more of a notable presence in the UK for a longer time than, say, the average British Black African. Many British Black Africans were not born in the UK, and compared to the average British Black Caribbean, they're more recently arrived. They're actually more likely to be a first generation migrant. And they're also more likely to have a stronger attachment to their faith. Now, as you say, over time, generation to generation, there may be a secularization process. But if you look at people of Pakistani and Bangladeshi origin, two ethnic groups which are majority Sunni, there's very high levels of in-group choice when it comes to marriage.
Mm.
So what you'll have there is that the average person in those ethnic groups are not only more likely to marry someone belonging to the same faith, they're also still very likely to marry within their own ethnic group as well. And that could even go down to their region of origin back in Bangladesh or Pakistan. So I think it really depends on when you're talking about that secularization process, or rather people detaching themselves from religion over time. I think much of that depends on the degree to which they bond and remain in group, especially when it comes to marriage, and the degree to which they socially and culturally integrate in the rapidly secularized white British mainstream.
With the figures that you mentioned in the book with regards to mental health, I'm just wondering, with ethnic minorities, could it be argued there's more of a taboo when it comes to mental health? And as such, could those figures that you just put in a book, could they actually be a lot higher, but it's just not being reported because there's more of a taboo?
I think there's definitely truth in that. If you're saying that there is a stigmatization or a stronger forms of stigmatization within certain minority groups when it comes to mental health, talking about it, expressing personal vulnerabilities, then I definitely think there's an element of truth in that. But these surveys are confidential. They're not face to face. Quite often they have an online methodology, so I think it allows the individual who are doing those surveys a bit more freedom to reveal their true feelings about their own mental health. This isn't like they're talking about this with a family member, or just even talking to someone face to face. They're doing an online survey, so I think that means that the figures there, that they are more likely to be accurate. And I think generally, when you look at studies in other countries, there is that pattern that stronger religious identification is traditionally associated with more positive mental health outcomes.